brother Jim asked him why he was so old. He said he just got started late, which we thought reflected on his manliness. He was much older than the parents of our school contemporaries, and there was nothing Jim or I could say about him.
Because he doesn't do anything. Atticus doesn't drive a dump truck for the county. He isn't sheriff. He doesn't farm or work in a garage or anything worth mentioning. Other fathers go hunt and play poker and fish. Atticus works in an office, and he reads.
With those attributes, however, Atticus did not remain as inconspicuous as Jim or I might have wished. No, he did not.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to her.
Hey, Skip! How come your daddy's been Nick?
Let me that bad boy!
You're gonna make me Papa say your daddy's disgraced that well out of the head you want to make me.
Take that back, bro!
Yeah, I told you to come in!
I said wasn't ready to come in! How to speak to Atticus?
It was Macomb, Alabama, and it was back in 1935, back when I was that girl. Back when ugly words were first shouted at us. Back at the beginning of an experience that brought a man to his death. And it brought Boo Bradley storming out of that shut-up house. The attack on me, Jim's arm broken, and another man killed. But that isn't what I want to remember. That's not what my mind's come back here. There's something I have to do. Something my father wanted. Probably enough years have gone by, enough that I can look back and perhaps even do the one thing my father asked. No, there was one other thing. When he gave us air rifles, he asked us to never kill a mockingbird.
Your father's right. Mockingbirds just make music. They don't eat up people's gardens, they don't nest in corn cribs, they don't do one thing but sing their hearts out. That's why it's a sin to kill a mockingbird. Miss Marty, this is an old neighborhood, ain't it? Been here longer than the town. No, I mean the folks in our street are old. Me and Jim's only children. Mrs. Dubose is close to 100, and Miss Crawford's old, and so are you and Atticus.
Not being wheeled around yet, neither's your father. You're lucky. You and Jim have the benefit of your father's age. If your father was 30, you'd find life quite different.
I sure would. Atticus can't do anything.
You'd be surprised. There's life in him yet.
What can he do?
Quite a lot. Seems to me you'd be proud of him.
Wow. The way some folks are going on, you'd think he'd be around a stick.
We lived over there. Atticus, my brother Jim, and Calpurnia, our cook, who raised us. Calpurnia was all angles and bones. Calpurnia's hand was as hard as a bed slab. My mother died when I was 2, so I never felt her absence. But I felt Calpurnia's tyrannical presence for as long as I can remember.
The water's too hot.
Keep on scrubbing. Even in 1935, Macomb was already a tired old town. In rainy weather, the streets turned to red flour. Grass grew on the sidewalks, and the courthouse sagged in the square. That's Hank Taylor, Judge Taylor.
Atticus, you home?
He's not yet. This is taking afternoon, Judge Taylor.
Afternoon. Cal, just tell him we passed by.
You want to call?
That's all right. We'll be seeing him anyway.
People moved slowly back then, and somehow it was hotter. A day was 24 hours long, but it seemed longer. There was no hurry, for there was nowhere to go, nothing to buy, and no money to buy it with.
Oh, lack of money is no excuse when a place go like that. At the least, they could cut the straws and grab and rabbit tobacco. But of course, they're Radley's.
Miss Stephanie Crawford, a neighborhood soul. According to her, everybody in Macomb had a streak. A mean streak, a drinking streak, a gambling streak, a funny streak.
No, Atkinson minds his own business. Every third Meriwether is morbid. The
Morbid.
truth is not in the Delafields. All the Bigfoots walk like that, and Miss Grace sips gin out of Lady Pinkham's bottles. It is nothing unusual. Her mother did the same.
She was also your principal source of information concerning Boo Bradley.
When that boy was in his teens, he took up with some bad ones from Old Sarum, and they were arrested on charges of disorderly conduct, disturbing the peace, assault and battery, and using abusive and profane language in the hearing and presence of a female. And Boo was released to his father, who shut him up in that house, and he wasn't seen again for 15 years.
15 years. I'd have to ask, as she intended.
Miss Stephanie, what happened 15 Well, Boo was sitting in the living room cutting up some items from the Makeup Tribune to paste in his scrapbook, and as his father passed by, Boo drove the scissors into his parents' leg, pulled them out, whacked them on his trousers, then resumed his activities. And Boo was then 33, and Mr. Radley said no Radley was going to any insane asylum, so he was kept on where he still is to this day.
How can you be sure he's still there?
Oh, well, because I haven't seen him carried out yet. Oh, that body
Jim and I had never seen him. That didn't come till later, and when he did, we were in no condition to take notice, being in fear of our lives. People said Boo came out when the moon was down. If azaleas froze in a cold snap, it was because Boo breathed on them. The tall, Radley pecan trees shook their fruit into the adjoining schoolyard, but the nuts lay untouched. Radley pecans would kill you. A baseball hit into the Radley yard was a lost ball. No questions asked. Alabama must be playing in the Rose Bowl, but Jim scored a winning touchdown.
Where are you going this time of day, Jeremy Finch? Playing hooky? I suppose I'll call your principal and tell him.
On Saturday, Mr. Bowes.
I wonder if your father knows where you are.
Of course he does.
Marty Atkinson told me you broke down the Scuppernong Arbor. She'll tell your father and you'll wish you'd never seen the light of day.
I haven't been near her Scuppernong Arbor.
Don't you contradict me! If you aren't sent to the reform school by the end of next week, my name is not DuBose.
Miss Henry Lafayette DuBose. If she was on the porch where Jim and I passed, we'd be raped by her raffle game, subjected to a ruthless interrogation regarding our behavior, and given a melancholic prediction about what we'd amount to when we grew up, which was always nothing. Jim and I hated her. We had no idea she was fighting such a hard battle.
Miss Cow?
Reverend Sykes of the First Purchase Church. Called the First Purchase Church because it was paid for by the first turning of the freed slaves.
Afternoon, Reverend.
Afternoon. It's about whether to talk about these troubles. We need to do more for his wife and children.
Yes.
The collection for the next few Sundays will go to his wife, Helen. Can you please encourage everyone to bring what they can?
Why y'all taking up a collection with Tom Robinson's wife?
Well, to tell you the truth, Miss Jean Louise, Helen's finding it hard to get work these days.
Well, I know Tom's done something awful, but why won't folks hire Helen?
Well, folks are anxious.
Get out of here. No, I told you. You stay out of town right now, you hear? And remember.
Bob Ewell and his daughter Mayella. No truant officer can keep any of the Ewells in school. No public health officer can keep them free of filth and disease. Good times or bad, they lived off the county near a small Negro settlement. And all Bob Ewell could hold on to that made him feel better than his nearest neighbors was that if he scrubbed real hard with live soap and very hot water, his skin was white.
Why'd y'all stop talking? Those are just the Ewells.
Remembering it now, I'm not surprised they stopped talking.
I've got all the calls to make. Goodbye, Miss Jean Louise. See you Sunday, Miss Cow.
Hey, Cal. What did Tom Robinson do?
Well, old Mr. Bob, you accused Tom of attacking his girl and had him put in jail.
But everybody in Maycomb knows the Ewells. You think folks be glad to hire Tom's wife?
That's what you think.
Cal, what does it mean he attacked her?
Well, you won't have to ask Mr. Finch about that. Are you hungry?
I have to see Atticus.
There's Dill! That was before Dill came to us. Dill, who was to give us the idea of making Boo Radley come out. His real name was Charles Baker Harris, and he'd been sent here to spend a summer with his aunt. We came to know Dill as a pocket merlin whose head heaved with eccentric plans, strange longings, and quaint fantasies. He was to be my childhood fiancé. What was nice for a girl, even if he wasn't very big. I'm little, he said one time, but I'm old.
You watching for your father?
Yeah. And what about your dad?
What do you mean?
Well, you never say anything about him.
Because I haven't got one.
Dead.
No.
Well, if he isn't dead, got one, haven't you?
Never mind your deal.
If his daddy isn't dead, how come he says he ain't got one? Maybe that
had another thing coming. Nathan Radley, that's him, stepped in and took his father's place. At least Nathan would speak to us.
How do you do, Mr. Nathan?
Afternoon.
Looking back for a place to begin, perhaps it would be what happens next.
Now, the rally's in the all by himself.
Wonder what he does. Looks like he sticks his head out the door sometimes.
He goes out when it's pitch dark. I've seen his tracks in our backyard many a morning. And one night, I heard him scratching on the back street.
Wonder what he looks like.
Judging from his tracks, he'd be about 6.5 feet tall. He eats raw squirrels, and any cats he can catch. What teeth he has are yellow and rotten. His eyes pop out, and most of the time he drools.
Who's like to come out?
Make Boo Radley come out? If you want to get yourself killed, all you have to do is go up and knock on that front door.
You're scared. Too scared to put your big toe in the front yard.
I ain't scared, just respectful.
I dare you.
You dare me.
Don't go near it, Jim. She'll run off on the
Let
day.
me think a minute.
Just touch the house. I dare you.
Touch the house, that's all.
Scoundrel will be right behind him. Folks where I come from aren't so scared. Never seen such scared folks as he.
Yeah. Where'd you get the chewing gum? That tree! Spit it out right now! Suppose Blue Rally put it there. Suppose it's poison. You go gargle.
We stole pebbles against the door, and as soon as Moonlight sticks his head out, said I want to buy him some ice cream. That'll seem friendly. Maybe if he came out inside to spell with us, he'd feel better.
How do you know I don't feel
How
bad?
do you feel if you've been locked up for 100 years with nothing but Cassie? Of course, rather I throw the pebble.
Better leave it to me. How many times I have to keep on showing you?
Maybe you ran.
You're not gonna throw stone at the rabbit house. Guess I just have to keep on showing you.
Jim!
Oh,
Just what were you about to do there, son?
Nothing, sir.
Don't give me none of that. Tell me. Come on. Come on. Do you need me to call a cab?
I was gonna throw a pebble.
Why?
because
See, son, I'm going to tell you something, and I'm going to tell you one time. Don't bother that man. What Mr. Radley does is his own decision. If he wants to stay inside his own house, he has the right to do so, free from the attention of inquisitive children. How would you like it if I barged into your rooms at night without knocking?
That's different.
Is it?
Because we're not crazy.
What Mr. Radley does may seem peculiar to us, but it does not seem peculiar to him.
But anyone who says it's
But that's his decision. I've got something to ask, and if you'll do it, you'll get along with all kinds. You see, you never really understand a person until you see things from their point of view. Until you creep into their skin and walk around it.
You want us to consider things from Boo Rally's point of view?
he means everyone.
You stay out of it.
That deal's right. But I expect I'm asking. There's Walter Cunningham.
I've got much better plans. See ya.
Afternoon, Walter. And regardless of any plans, you're to stay away from that house unless invited.
This is for you, Mr. Finch. Turnip green.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to pay you cash for your services, but between the mortgage and the town.
This is just fine. Jam, take this sack up the cab, please. I'd say your bill is more than settled, Walter.
We have a lot of time.
Let's see now. You left a load of stove wood in the backyard, then a sack of hickory nuts. At Christmas, there was a crate of Smilax and Harlem. Now a bag of turnip greens. I'm more than paid.
You say so.
You boys in the class at school, Mr. Cunningham. We had a disagreement the other day.
I have a few of that for myself, little lady.
I didn't actually get him a bag.
He can't defend himself against a girl. He'll just have to take it.
Anytime I can be of service.
Atticus, why is the head of stove wood and turnip green?
Because that's the only way he can.
Are we poor, Atticus?
We are indeed.
As poor as the Cunninghams?
Not exactly. The Cunninghams are country folk and the Depression hit them hardest. What was your trouble with my client's boy?
He said some things I didn't like, so I rubbed his nose in the dirt.
That's not very ladylike. What did he say?
Things. And I think we should have a talk. I've been waiting for you to get home.
Atticus, will we going out for the Methodist for the football game?
What?
Yeah, we'll be so far. But everybody's talking about already. The Methodist challenge Baptist to a game of touch football.
Afraid I won't be much help, Jim.
Well, everybody in town's father's playing.
Except yours.
Every other father.
I'd break my neck.
It's touch.
I'm too old for that sort of thing.
Well, sir, will you at times show Scout me how to shoot at air rifles? Later, I mean.
I've told you, you have to wait for your Uncle Jack. You really show me.
How couldn't you show us?
I'm not interested in guns.
He's not interested in anything!
Why do folks slow down as they go past?
What folks?
Y'all are some bitches.
Sanders is chilling.
For all he cares, blacks can run loose and rip off the countryside.
Why is everybody?
That's the way they are.
But
I gotta go.
Someone call?
I've been meaning to ask. Come on. Atticus, do you defend niggers?
Of course I do, and don't say nigger scout. That's common.
That's what everybody at school
From
says.
now on, it'll be everybody's second one.
Do all lawyers defend Negroes?
They do.
Then why do the kids at school make it sound like you're doing something awful?
You aren't old enough to understand some things yet, Scout, but there's been a lot of high talk around town that I shouldn't do much about defending Tom Robbins. But I'm going to defend that man.
If they say you shouldn't, then why are you doing it?
If I didn't defend him, I couldn't hold my head up. I couldn't ask you again to do nothing again.
You mean me and Jim wouldn't have to mind you anymore?
That's about right.
Why?
If I didn't defend him, I couldn't ask you to mind me again. Every lawyer gets at least one case in his lifetime that affects him personally. This one's mine, I guess.
Are we gonna win?
No, honey.
Then what?
Simply because we were elected 100 years before we started is no reason not to try to
You
win.
sound like some old Confederate veteran.
Except we won't be fighting Yankees. We'll be fighting our friends. And remember this, no matter how hard things get, they are still our friends, and this is still our home.
Is there something you want me to do?
Keep your head up, and I hope you can get through what's coming without catching Maycomb's usual disease. While reasonable people go stark raving mad when anything involves a Negro comes up. Something I don't pretend to understand.
This Tom Robinson case must be pretty important.
It goes to the essence of a man's conscience.
Now, suppose you're wrong about it.
How's that?
Well, most folks think that they're right and you're
Well,
wrong.
they're entitled to think that, and they're entitled to the full respect of their opinions. But before I can live around other folks, I've got to live with myself first.
What does that mean?
One thing doesn't abide by majority rule. A person's conscience.
Jim! Hey, Jim!
I thought I had interesting information to pass along to Jim. Apparently, our father was more complex than we'd realized. Certainly, this new aspect of his legal practice was more promising than doing papers and in office. I found my brother unresponsive. Probably the Tom Robinson case wasn't quite as new to him as it was to me. Thinking about it now, probably his abuse from older boys made him so eager to involve his father in sensible community activities, like a game of touch football. All such invitations were politely declined. Then, a few weeks later, something happened. Something that made our father even more of a puzzle. The tension in town about the upcoming child was getting drummed tight, but what happened had nothing to do with that. It had to do with a little curly bird dog named Tim.
Why do I have to come home?
Because I tell you, that old dog from down yonder is sick. Gal, can you come here a minute?
Don't be Timmy's little lopsided, that's all.
What is it, Jim? I can't drop on you every time you call.
Something wrong with that old dog down yonder.
I ain't got time for your dog's foot right now.
He's sick, Cal. Something wrong with him.
Trying to catch his tail.
No, he's doing like this.
You telling me a story, Jim, then?
No, Cal, he's coming this way.
Running?
Just moseying, but walking funny.
I'll go help. Take him out the street. Come on now.
He's not even in sight.
Operator, hello, Michelle May. Please give me Mr. Finch's office right away.
You started something.
Mr. Finch's cow. There's a massive benefit piece and Jim Finch coming this way. Yes. Yes, sir.
What's that you say?
In a minute. Michelle May, I'm through talking to Mr. Finch. Can you call Miss Crockett, Miss Atkinson, and whoever got a phone, let them know the address for me? Please, ma'am, hurry.
What about the rabbits? They got called?
They wouldn't come out anyway.
Maybe. I gotta call out.
No, Scout.
Listen to me. You go back and you stay. Go back.
She's not scared one bit.
Well, see, Tim.
Maybe he turned off.
Maybe. I see him! There he is! Kill!
Get inside the house, both of you. Let's him go now, all right?
He's coming now, Mr. Radley.
Get inside.
You always pick on me.
Had it coming.
He's moving so as a snail.
Snap.
Fine, Sam.
Where'd you find it?
We're coming to you, Dr. Monroe.
Around the tree!
I'll sit down.
Any, they're real valuable. They make you have good luck. Why would someone leave
They're
that?
mine. I risked my life out there.
Oh, it's him! He's walking like his right leg is shorter than his left leg.
We assumed that Atticus would turn to competent authority to handle this dangerous situation, and our assumption was to prove correct. When our father arrived, he was accompanied by the sheriff.
Atticus, he's over there behind us.
Right behind the red pecan trees.
Not running, is it, Cal?
Instead of twitching stages, the heck?
Usually they go in a straight line, but you never can,
Let's
Cal.
slope and walk big back.
I thought Randolph told you the mouth and don't get you throat.
Hush, child.
There he is.
Oh, he's got it all right, Mr.
He's
Finch.
looking for a place to dive his head.
Far from it, Jim. He hasn't got started yet.
He's within range. Check your back in. Some side street. Lord knows who's around the corner.
Get inside the house, both of you.
You guys close.
I don't go until he goes in.
I don't watch the sheriff.
It was right then the most astonishing thing happened. I almost fainted.
You do it, Mr. Finch. You take him.
Don't waste time, Heck. Go on.
Mr. Finch, this is a one-shot job.
Don't just stand there, Heck.
For God's sake, look where he is. I can't shoot that better than you know it.
I haven't shot a gun in 30 years.
I'd feel mighty comfortable if you did now.
Jim and I were in a fog, watching our father stand there on the street with a rifle. It was utterly beyond belief.
Shot him. You got him.
Yes, but I think it was him.
It is a doorman. And only a little bit right.
Always was.
I'll let someone swing by with a pickup and take him away.
Just where do you think you're going?
You got it, Mr. Finch. Haven't lost it.
What, son?
I saw that one-shot Finch.
Oh, keep it down!
Son, you and your sister stay away from that dog. He's just as dangerous dead as alive.
Yes, sir. Atticus.
What's the matter, boy? Can't you talk? Didn't you know your
Hush,
dad is a vet?
Heck. We better get back to town.
What's your hurry? Have to get back to working on those speeches for the tribe?
Don't remind me.
Oh, ladies, can you believe we missed it? Oh, Marty, can you believe we missed it? Marty, maybe too much. Yeah, maybe you just full of fleas and Atticus.
If Tim was still coming up the street, maybe you'd be singing a different tune.
Oh, maybe I would. I did feel safe when Atticus Finch took the ride.
Sam stopped. All of a sudden, it looked like that gun was a part of him. He did it so quick. I didn't think for 10 minutes before I could shoot something.
Well, now, Miss Jean Louise, still think your father can't do anything? Still ashamed of him?
No, ma'am.
Forgot to mention the other day that he's the deadest shot in Maycomb County. Something for you to think about, Jem Finch. When your father was a boy, his nickname was Old One Shot. Why, if he shot 15 times and hit 14 doves, he'd complain about wasting ammunition.
But he never said anything about it.
Wonder why he never goes hunting now.
If your father's anything, he's civilized. Marksmanship like that's a gift to God. I think he put his gun down when he realized God had given him an unfair advantage.
Looks like he'd be proud of him.
People like your father never bother about pride in their gifts.
This event unsettled our established view of Atticus. It was something to talk over. No, celebrate. But we didn't get too far.
Well, I have something to talk at school on Monday.
Don't know if you should say anything about it.
I'd like to find the Cunningham boy right now. Ain't everybody's daddy the dead shot in Maycomb?
I reckon if he wanted us to know, he would have told us.
Probably just slipped his mind.
Nah, it's something you wouldn't understand. So, we don't have to talk about it any more than he does. And our family's 100 years old. But then, make him kill.
Say hey to me, you ugly girl. Say good afternoon, Mr. Boat.
In point of fact, Jim and I didn't even get to the end of the street before we been slapped down again about our father.
You should be dressed in a handsome. If you don't change your ways soon, you'll be working at the OK Cafe. A Finch. Waiting tables at the OK Cafe. Huh.
I was terrified. The OK Cafe was a dim organization at the end of town. We still didn't really know what was the matter with Mr. Bose, but that's part of what Atticus wanted to do. Part of what I'm trying to remember it all now.
Come on, Scout. Don't pay any attention. Just hold your head high. Be a gentleman.
Uglier lady than your mother never lived. That's It's a shame how Atticus lets her children run wild.
Come on, Jim. Let's just keep going.
I'm with you.
Not just a Finch waiting tables for one lawn in the courthouse for colors. What has this world come to when the Finches go against their race? Your father's no better than the trash he works for!
I'll fix her! She has no right just because of Atticus. I'm sick and tired of everybody.
Jim, don't let him get to you.
Go home! Stay out of this!
Jim, stop what he's doing. Hey, now, Jim's out of control. He's gone mad. He's not talk to every Camilla Bush and Mr. Wilson.
Thought Jim had a soul food.
Not anymore. He's gone crazy.
When people say things about your father,
Yeah, Mr. Buzz, how'd you know? We found out something about Atticus today. Something special.
about time.
He's the dead shot in Maycomb.
That's what you found out.
And it's the truth. So it don't matter what folks say.
Wouldn't matter anyway.
What are you doing here? I thought you'd been taken back to see the folks in Meridian.
I was.
Then how in Sam Hills?
You see,
You're all musty lusty.
of course I am. I have a new father, and he doesn't like me. So he had me bound up in chains and left to die in the basement. But I was secretly kept alive on raw field beans by a passing farmer who heard my cries for help.
If you were chained in the
The
basement.
good man poked a bushel of beans to me, pod by pod, through the ventilator.
Lucky for you, that good man was passing.
I worked myself free, pulling the chains from the wall. Then, still wrist eyes, I wandered out of Meridian, where I discovered a small animal shop, and they hired me to wash the
Now,
cans.
how exactly do you go about washing the
I
cans?
traveled all over with that show, everywhere, till suddenly my sense of direction told me I was just across the river from Macon.
How did you get here, Dill?
Hey, Jim.
Oh,
Now,
speaking of Dill.
I took $13 from my mom's purse, caught the 9 o'clock train from Meridian, got up at the junction and walked the rest of the way.
Why'd you run off?
Didn't run off, decided I'd come back here. That's all.
To stay with your Rachel.
I want to stay here. That's,
We're gonna have a hot summer.
I don't mind.
Oh, maybe you better come back later.
I'm not going.
Oh, Atticus! Look, we have a visitor. Here's Dale come back from Meridian. Did you know he knows how to wash a camel?
Deal?
Sir?
Son, I had a phone call a few minutes ago. Are you responsible for the damage to those flowers?
Yes, sir.
Why did you do it?
Mr. Bo said you liked the colors.
And that's why you destroyed her garden.
Yes, sir.
Son, I have no doubt you've been annoyed by your contemporaries at the moment for me long for colors, as you say, but to do something like this to a sick old lady is inexcusable. I strongly advise you go over and have a talk with her.
Talk to us.
Right
Not
now,
like that.
come on,
It's
Jim,
fine.
scout! And come straight home afterwards. Go on.
All we was doing was sitting up for you.
Never thought Jem would be the one to lose his head. Thought I'd have more trouble with you.
Why do we have to keep our heads anyways? Nobody in school keeps their heads about anything.
You'll soon have to be keeping your head about far worse things. Your Aunt Rachel didn't say you were coming
Oh,
by.
she doesn't know.
Please, sir, don't tell her I'm here.
Don't tell.
He's her away.
Don't make me go back, sir.
Let me get this
If
straight.
you make me go back, I'll just run away.
Oh, son.
He's been living on raw beans.
I'll tell you what. Go to the little telephone and I can ask if you can spend the night, perhaps a few days.
Would you, sir?
Maybe Scout can get you something to go with those raw
Oh,
beans.
it's okay. You knock it off.
I think you've been started. Was your father really hateful like you said?
That's not it. They just wasn't interested in me.
Well, you're not telling me, right? You folks can do without?
Of course they can't. They get along a lot better without me. They stay gone most of the time, and when they're home, they're always off by themselves. They don't need anything. They buy me everything I want. It's just, now you got it. Go play with it.
Your folks must need you. Why, Atticus couldn't get along a single day without my help
The
and advice.
special thing about your father is not that he's
dead shot.
He made Jim go over to Mr. Boat.
Don't you see why he did that?
Because it's his way.
And Jim will be alright. For my plan, we need a box of lemon drops. I'll put one just outside Boo's house. Then a roll leading down the street. When he thinks he's safe, he'll notice the lemon drop. And the next one, will fall in like ants.
That's a lot of lemon drops.
We're bullets, sir.
You've been the subject of considerable conversation.
What did Rachel say?
Well, first she said, wait till I get him home. And then she went on to, his parents must be out of their minds worrying. And she ended with, reckon you'll be safe for the night anyway.
Hey, you hear that?
But I thought I might speak to your parents, so I called them too.
What'd they say?
Couldn't have been more agreeable. Said you could stay for as long as you weren't in the way.
Isn't that great? Sure is. They must have been looking all over Meridian for me.
Actually, they thought you must have got stuck in some picture show.
Generally, they'd be right too.
We're gonna go through a rough time. It'll be good having you here, dear.
Do you mean that?
It'll be a help having you here. There's a cotton gin too.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Mr. Finch,
More company. Come on up, Peck.
rather speak to you down here.
Oh,
What's going on?
only two reasons why grown men talk in the front yard. Death or politics. Which is it, Heck?
Could be a little bit of both.
Then we better talk. You children go inside now.
But I want to know
You'll
what's
go
happening.
inside, Bill.
Come on, don't you think you can boss me around too? They have business.
They moved Tom Robinson to the county jail this afternoon. Now, I don't look for trouble, but I can't guarantee there won't be.
Don't be foolish, Heck. This is Maycon.
I'm just uneasy, that's all.
Trial will probably be the day after tomorrow. You can keep him till then, can't you? You don't think anybody will begrudge me with a client with times this hard?
It's just that old serum bunch. You know how they do when they get all shinnied up.
Are they drinking?
Could be. Mr. Finch, I don't see why you took this case. You got everything to lose.
Do you really think so?
I do, Atticus. And I mean everything.
Heck, that bull might go to the chair, but he's not going until the truth is told.
Right?
And you know as well as I do what the truth is.
I just thought I should keep you informed. That's all.
And I appreciate it. Thank you, Heck.
Sure. Take care of yourself, Atticus.
Don't worry. Well, son,
I told her I worked on your garden, trying to make it grow back. And I said I was sorry, but I'm not. What was I
there's no
saying?
point in saying you're sorry if you're not.
How about what she said?
She's old and she's ill. I've got work.
She wants me to read to her. She wants me to come over every afternoon and read out loud to her for 2 hours. And guess do I have to?
You do.
Oh, but her house is so dark. Creepy shadows on the ceiling.
That should appeal to your imagination. Just pretend you're...
They sure in a peculiar mood these days. What heck want?
Death and politics.
Don't be silly. They were just moving Tom Robinson to the Maycomb jail.
Your father said I could stay a while. He said I could caught in your room.
So, what are you going to read to Mr. Go?
I've been home. What would you want me to read out?
Seemed like your father didn't care.
I wouldn't care.
Ask him.
Ask me what?
Nothing.
Your folks will be in bed when I get back, so I'll say goodnight now.
Where are you going?
Out. You mind Calpurnia?
What do you do with the chair and the lamp?
You might have use for them. You mind things, Cap.
Do my best.
Where's he going?
I could make a guess. Only, I won't. Oh! Almost had the dinner. You watched that now. Oh, wait a minute. I really need a wash.
That's the main thing Cal thinks about. Why wouldn't she make a guess?
What was Atticus doing with the chair and the lamp? What else was Heck saying to Atticus?
Dill and I recounted all we'd heard about the conversation in the yard, and Jim thought about it. He hardly said a word through dinner. Then, later, instead of going to bed, Jim said he'd go downtown for a while. I decided I was coming too, and there was no stopping Jim. We crept past Mrs. DeBose's house, onto the Radley place, and then onto Town Square. It was deserted. We thought that Atticus would be in his office, and we went over, but he wasn't. We were getting uneasy. Then we noticed something peculiar. When we came over by the jailhouse, there was a light.
There he is! No, Scout!
Just want to ask him I sent from the jailhouse.
Maybe we shouldn't bother him right now.
Yeah.
It's pretty late.
He's okay, so let's go home. I just want to see where he was.
After all this runaround, tell me about at least what he's up to.
They're quiet.
He can't hear me.
Dad, listen.
It's caused a lot
wonder
So
what...
mean. Get down and watch.
What's happening?
The way he looked to us, Atticus was quite calm. He seemed to be expecting exactly what was coming.
You in there, Mr. Finch?
He is, and he's asleep. Don't wake him up.
You know what we won't? Step aside from that door, Mr. Finch.
You can turn around and go home again, Walter. Won't do that. Might as well. Hectate's around here somewhere.
The hell he is. Next bunch of salty lords. They won't get out till morning.
Indeed. What's up?
Cut him off on the snap hunt. Didn't you think of that, Mr. Finch?
Thought about it, but didn't believe it.
Guess that changes things.
Oh, yes, they do.
Do you really think so?
Do you really think so? Was a dangerous question from Atticus. I decided he was going to deal with somebody and it's still going to miss.
Let's go see what happened.
No, please.
Don't kick the little scout. No, scout.
Nobody's gonna do Jen.
All right, Mr. Finch. You get him home. Give you 15 seconds.
I ain't going.
Jen, you take Scout and deal. You go home right now.
Sorry.
Son, I told you, please.
Mr. Cunningham? Is that you, Mr. Cunningham? Oh, hey, Mr. Cunningham. Well, don't you remember me? I'm Jean Louise Finch. You brought us that big bag of turnip greens every time, remember? I go to school with your boy, Walter. Well, he is your boy, ain't he? Ain't he, sir? Oh, I knew he was your boy. Maybe he told you about me. Because I beat him up one time. But he was real nice about it. Tell him, hey for me, won't you? And my father was telling me about your entailment. He says they're bad. Atticus, I was just telling Mr. Cunningham about how entailments are bad. But I remember you said not to worry. It takes a long time sometimes, but y'all ride it out together. What is it? Can anybody tell me? Mr. Cunningham, what's the matter?
Ain't nothing the matter, little lady. I'll tell my boy who said, hey, clear on out of here, boys. Hard. We're going home.
They're going.
Looks that way?
Atticus, can we go home now?
Yes, we can go home.
I thought Mr. Cunningham was in rain.
He still is. He just has his rough spots like the rest of us.
He was ready to hurt you.
That's because he was part of a mob. Mob's made up of people. What you kids did, you made him remember he was a man.
Mr. Finch, they gone?
They won't bother you no more, Tom. Thank you, Mr. Finch. Better get some sleep. We're gonna go through some rough times.
You better get some sleep, too.
That's my intention. Good night, Tom.
Can I take a check there, Mr. Finch?
Yes.
Atticus, I want to go home.
You two certainly don't mind very well.
Atticus, what was it you said we did to Mr. Cunningham?
You made him step in my shoes for a minute.
The following Monday, Atticus told us to stay home, and for a while we did. People were streaming into town like it was Saturday. Seemed like the whole county was coming for Tom Robinson's trial. When Jim, Dill, and I reached the courthouse square, we found it covered in picnic parties. Apparently, the trial was to be a gala occasion. There was no room at the public engine rail. Mules and wagons were parked under every available tree. People were washing down biscuit and syrup with warm milk from fruit jars. Some went on cold chicken and cold fried pork chops. In the far corner of the square, the Negroes sat proudly in the sun, dining on sardines and crackers. At some invisible signal, they all got up and started into the courthouse. We didn't want Atticus to see it, so we waited. Then there were no seats left. Reverend Sykes asked us if we could care to sit on the public side of the balcony, and Jim said, gosh, yes, and we went with him. By the time we got to the trial, it had already started. The prosecutor, Mr. Gilmer from Appleton, was already taking testimony from Mr. Hangton.
In your own words, Mr. Tate.
Well, I was called
Could
by...
you say to the jury, Mr. Tate, who called you?
I was called by Bob. Mr. Bob, you were yonder one night.
What night, sir?
The night of November the 21st. I was getting ready to head home from my office when Bob, Mr. Yule, burst in. Very excited he was, said to come to his house quick. Some colored had attacked his girl.
And did you go?
Well, certainly, I got in the car and went out as fast as I could.
And what did you find?
I found her lying on the floor. She was pretty well beat up, but I heaved her to her feet and she washed her face in the bucket. She said she was all right.
Go on.
When I asked her who done her like that, she said Tom Robinson. Asked her if he beat her up, and she said yes, he had. Asked her if he'd taken advantage of her, and she said yes, he did. I went down to Robinson's house and I brought him back. She identified him as the one, and so I took him in. That's all there was to it.
Thank you.
Any questions, Atticus?
Yes, Sheriff, did you call a doctor?
No, sir.
Why not?
I didn't feel it was necessary, but she was mighty banged up.
You didn't think the
He
nature of her...
has answered the question, Atticus.
Just making sure, Judge. Sheriff, you say she was mighty banged up. Could you please just describe her injuries?
Well, she had bruises coming in on her arms and a black eye starting.
Which eye was that?
Her left.
Her left eye facing you were looking the same way you were.
I guess that'd make it her right. Yes, I remember now. It was the right side of the face. Her right eye.
Could you please repeat what you said?
Her right eye.
No, you said that side of her face. Which side?
The right side.
That's all. Thank you, Hank.
Robert, you?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So help me God. Mr. Robert, you? That's my name, Captain. Are you the father of my LU? Well, if I ain't, can't do anything about it now. Mom's dead.
Ah, you the father of male you.
Yes.
Get this straight. There will be no audibly obscene speculations from anyone in this courtroom on any subject. You understand? Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. So you, please describe the evening of November 21st. Well, I was coming from the woods below the Kill. And just as I got to the fence, I heard my man yelling screaming like a stuck hog inside the house. What time was it, Mr. Yu? Just for sundown. And as I was saying, she was screaming like... Yes, she was screaming? She was raising up a holy racket. So I dropped my kindling and I ran to the fence. And I seen that dirty color attacking my man.
Mr. Jem, take Miss Julie home. Mr. Jem, you hear me?
Scout, go home. Scout, you and Dill, go home.
You can't make me.
I think it's okay, Reverend. She don't understand.
I most certainly do. I can understand anything you can.
This ain't fit for Miss Jean Louise. Are you boys either?
What? There has been a request that this courtroom be cleared of spectators, or at least of women and children. A request that for the time being will be denied. People generally see what they look for and hear what they listen for, and they have the right to make whatever decisions they feel are best for their children. You may decide that there is something to be learned here, or you may decide that you do not wish to face this problem. The decision is yours to make, but I suggest you make it right now. I am interrupting this trial for a 10-minute recess. See we still have a few with us? Well, let's get on. Mr. You will keep your testimony within the confines of Christian English usage, if that's at all possible. Proceed, Mr. Gilmer.
Yes, look,
Mr. Did you see the defendant attacking your daughter?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. You said you're out the window?
Yes, sir.
Did you have a clear view of the room?
Yes, sir.
How'd the room look?
All slung about like there was a fight.
And what did you do when you saw the defendant?
Well, I ran around the house to get in, but he ran ahead, just in front of me. I saw who he was, but I was too distracted by my man yelling to run after him. She was in there squalling, so I ran inside the house.
Then what'd you do?
Well, I run back Tate as quick as I could. I know who was all right. Passed by that house every day. Lived down yonder in that colored dump. Judge, I have this county for 15 years to clean up that dump down yonder. They're dangerous to live around, and besides, devalued my property. That's all.
Just a second, sir. Could I ask you a question or two?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Yu. Folks were doing a lot of running that night. Let's see, you ran to the house, you ran to the window, you ran inside, and you ran for heck tape. In all that running, did you ever run for a doctor?
Wasn't no need to.
You didn't think the nature of your daughter's injuries warranted medical attention?
I never called a doctor in my life. If I would, it would have cost me $5. Is that all the questions?
Not quite. Mr. Yu, you heard the sheriff's testimony, didn't you?
Yes.
Do you agree with what he said? That Mayla's right eye was blackened and that she was beaten around.
Yeah, I'll hold to that.
That her right eye was
I
blackened.
hold to the tape.
Mr. Yule, can you read and write?
Objection. Can't do witnesses. Literacy has to do with case. Irrelevant and immaterial.
If you allow this question plus another one, Judge, you'll soon see.
All right, but make sure we see Atticus. Overruled.
Will you write your name and show us?
Well, I most positively will. How do you think I sign my relief checks?
Jim, do you think Atticus knows what he's doing?
Seems like he knows.
But as far back as I can remember, he said to never, never, never ask a question on cross-examination unless you already know the answer.
Because you might get an answer that'll wreck your case.
Looks to me like he's gone frog sticking without a laugh.
Big and clear now so the jury can see you do it.
What's so interesting?
He's left-handed.
That's it.
What's my being left-handed have to do with the case? He's trying to take advantage of me. Tricking lawyers like Atticus Finch are always trying to take advantage of me with their tricking ways. But that don't change what I thought. And I'll say it again. I thought
That's
that
enough, Mr. Yule!
I think he's got him.
Don't count your chickens.
Oh, right, I was blackened. That means someone left-handed must have done it.
Maybe Tom Robinson's left-handed.
Mailer by the Yule?
You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please tell us in your own words what happened on the evening of November 21st. Where were you at dusk that evening?
On the porch.
And what were you doing on the porch?
Just tell us what happened. You can't do that, can't you? What are you scared of? What was that?
Him. I don't want him doing me like he done Papa, making Mountain left-handed.
How old are you?
19 and a half.
I see. Well, Mr. Finch has no idea of scaring you, and if he did, I'm here to stop him. Now, sit up straight and tell us what happened.
Well, I was on the porch and he come along. You see, there's this old shipper robe in the front yard that Papa brought home for me to chop up for kindling while he was out in the woods. But I wasn't feeling strong enough, so he come on by.
Who's he?
That and yonder Robinson.
Then what happened?
I said, come here, boy, and bust up this old shipper robe for me. I got a nickel for you. So he come in the front yard, and I went in the house to get him the nickel, and before you knew it, he was at me. He got his hands around my neck, and I fought, but he hit me again and again.
Go on.
And he took advantage of me.
Did you scream and fight back?
I kicked and hollered as loud as I could.
And what happened?
I don't remember too good, but Papa came in and he was hollering who done it, and then I sort of fainted, and the next thing I remember, Mr. Papus helped me over the water.
You fought Robinson hard as you could, tooth and nail?
I most certainly did.
He took advantage of you.
I already told you.
That's all for now. Stay here. I expect Big Bad Mr. Finch will have some questions for you.
State will not prejudice the witness against the counsel for defense.
Miss Mail, I won't try to scare you, not for a while yet. Let's get acquainted. How old are you?
Said I was 19 and a half and sit at the bench of yonder.
You'll have to forgive me. I can't remember as well as I used to. I might ask you a couple questions you've already said before, but you'll give me an answer, won't you? Good.
Won't answer a word as long as you keep mocking me.
Man?
As long as you call me ma'am and use Miss Mayella, I do not have to take this kind of sass.
That's just Mr. Finch's way. Mr. Finch and I have done business in this court for years. He's always courteous. Let's get on, Atticus, and let the record show that the witness has not been sacked.
How many brothers and sisters you have?
7?
You the oldest?
Yes.
How long has your mother been dead?
I don't know, a long time.
How long did you go to school?
2 years, 3 years, I don't know.
Miss Mayella, a 19-year-old girl must have friends. Who are your friends?
Friends?
You know, boys, girls your own age, just ordinary friends.
Are you making fun of me again, Mr. Finch?
Miss Mayella, do you love your father?
Love him as a man.
Is he good to you? Is he easy to get along with?
He does tolerable,
Except when?
I said he just tolerable.
Except when he's drinking. When he's wild, has he ever beaten you?
Answer the question, Miss Madden.
My paw has never touched a hair on my head.
All right, we had a good visit, Miss Mayella. But now we'd better get to the case. You say you asked Tom Robertson to come in and chop up, what was
A
it?
shipper robe, an old dresser.
And was this the first time you asked Tom Robertson to come inside the fence? Was this
Yes,
the first?
it was. It most certainly was.
You never asked him to come inside the fence
I
before.
most certainly did not.
You never asked him to do odd jobs for you before.
I'm mad at...
Can you remember any other occasions?
No.
Now to what happened. You say Tom Robertson got you around the neck and choked you. Is that right?
Yes.
You say he caught me, choked me, and took advantage of me. Is that right?
That's what I said.
Did he beat you about the face? All this time you were fighting back. Remember, you kicked and you hollered, but did he beat you about the face? It's an easy question, Miss Mailer, so I'll try again. Did he beat you about the face?
No, I don't. I mean, yes, he hit me.
Was your last sentence your answer?
Yeah, yes, he hit me.
Don't you
It's
cry,
all happened
young
so
woman.
fast.
God wants to judge. You've got all the time in the world.
Get me up here and you mock me. I'll answer any questions that you got.
That's fine. Only have a few more. Miss Mailer, will you identify the man who attacked you?
I will. It's him right yonder.
Tom, stand up. Let Miss Mailer have a good look at you. Is this the man, Miss Mailer?
Scout Reverend, his left hand, he's crippled.
Now, Carter Jr.'s a boy. Like bled to death. Torn once it's loose.
Is this the man who attacked you?
It most certainly was.
How?
I don't know how, but he did. It all happened
Let's
so
consider
fast.
this wrong.
Objection. He's browbeating the witness.
Oh, sit down, Horace.
You testified the defendant got you around the neck and choked you. You didn't say he came up behind you and knocked you cold. Would you like to reconsider any part of your testimony?
Do you want me to say something that didn't happen?
No, I want you to say something that did happen.
Well, I already told you.
He blackened your left eye with his right fist.
I ducked and it glanced
You're a
off.
strong girl. Why didn't you run?
I tried to.
And you were screaming all the time.
I most certainly was.
Then why didn't the other children hear you? Where were they? Why didn't your screams make them come running? Or didn't you scream until you saw your father in the window? Is that it? You didn't scream till then, did you? Did you scream at Tom Robinson or your father? What did he really see in that window, Miss Mailer? Why don't you tell the truth, child? Didn't Bob Buell beat you up? Would you like to tell us what happened?
Now I got something to say and I ain't gonna say it no more. That black man yonder, he took advantage of me. And if you fine, fancy gentlemen, you don't want to do nothing about it, then you are nothing but a bunch of you lousy yellow stinking cowards, the whole lot of you. And your fancy airs, they don't come to nothing. And all of your ma'am and your Miss Mailer, and they do not come to nothing, Mr. Finch.
That's all. Good down. So the state rests.
Shall we try to wind this up today? How about it, Atticus?
I think we can.
How many witnesses you got?
One.
Call them.
I called Tom Robinson.
Inside, sir.
It's all right, Tom.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Swear.
You're Tom Robinson, married with 3 children, been in trouble with the law once before, a 30-day sentence. What did that consist of?
Got in a fight with another man. He tried to cut me, but it wasn't much. Not enough to hurt.
And you were both convicted.
I had to serve because I couldn't pay the fine. The other fellow paid his in.
Tom, were you acquainted with Mayor Violet you?
Had to pass that place going to and from the field every day.
Whose field?
I work for Mr. Lindees.
You pass the Yule place every day to get to work. Is there any other way?
No, sir. None's I know of.
Tom, would she ever speak to you?
Well, I tip my hat when I go by. And one day she asked me to come inside the fence to bust up the shipper rope.
When did she ask you to bust up the shiffer rope?
It was way last spring. After broke it, she said, reckon I have to give you a nickel, won't I? And I said, no, ma'am. They don't charge. Then I went home. That was way of a year ago, Mr. Finch.
Did you ever go on the place again?
Yes, sir.
When?
Well, I went lots of times.
Under what circumstances?
She called me in. It seemed like every time I passed down yonder, she had something for me to do. Shopping, kindling, towing water for her.
Were you paid for these services?
No, sir. Not after she offered me the nickel the first time, but I was glad to do it. Mr. Yule didn't seem to help her none, and neither did the children.
Where were the other children?
They were always around, all over the place.
Tom, did you ever set foot on the Yule property without an express invitation from one of them?
No, sir, I never done that. I wouldn't do that, Mr. Finch.
Tom, what happened to you the evening of November 21st?
Mr. Finch, I was going home as usual that evening, and when I passed your place, Miss Mallow on the porch, like she said she were. It seemed more quiet like and I don't quite know why. She called to me to come help her a minute. Well, I went inside the fence and I looked for some kindling to work on. But I ain't seen none. And she says, no, I got something for you to do in the house. The old door's off its hinges. I said, you got a screwdriver, Miss Mallow? She said she had. I went up the steps and she motioned me to come inside. I looked at the door. I said, Miss Mallow, it still look all right. Those hinges was all right. Then she shut the door. Mr. Finch, I was running around so quiet like and it comes to me. They weren't chilling on the place. Not one of them. And I said, Miss Mallow, where the children?
Go on, Tom.
I said, where the children? And she was laughing sort of. She said they all gone to town to get some ice cream. It took me a slap here to save them nickels. But I done it. They all gone to town.
What did you say then, Tom?
Well, I said something like, why, Miss Mallow, that's right smart of you to treat him. And she said, you think so? I don't think she understood what I meant, Mr. Finch. I meant it was smart of her to say it like that, and not to treat him.
I understand. Go on, Tom.
Well, I say, best be going now, Miss Mallow. There wasn't nothing I could do for her. And she said, yes, I could. She said to step on that chair yonder and get the box from down off the top of the shifter rope.
Not the same shifter rope you busted up.
No, sir, another one. Most as tall as the room. So I don't, she told me, and I was reaching to get the box when she grabbed me. She grabbed me around the legs. Mr. Finch, she scared me so bad I hopped in and I turned that chair over. That was the only thing. Only furniture disturbed in the room. Mr. Finch, when I left, I swear for God.
Tom, what happened after you turned that chair over? You've testified to tell the whole truth. What happened?
Answer the question.
I jumped down and she jumped at me.
Jumped? Violently?
No, sir, she grabbed me around the waist. Said she never had her arm around a young man before and she might as well start with me. I tried to run, but she got her back to the door. I said, let me pass, but just as I said it, Mr. Yule yonder hollered from the window.
What did he say?
Something not finna say wrong with his folks in Chimney.
Tom, you must tell the jury what he said. What did he say?
Say, you damn slut, I'll kill you.
Then what happened?
I got her there so fast, Mr. Finch, I don't know what happened next.
Tom, did you attack Mayella Yu?
I did not.
Did you harm her in any way?
I did not, sir.
Did you resist her advances?
I tried to. I thought being ugly to her. I didn't want to harm her or nothing.
Back to Mr. Yu. Who was he talking to?
He was talking and looking at Miss Mallow.
And then you ran.
I sure did.
Why did you run?
Mr. Finch, if you was a black man like me, you'd be scared too.
Yeah.
There's something I want a lot of you know right now. Tom Robinson is working.
That's enough, Linkteens. If you have something to say, you can say it under oath and at the proper time. You ought to disregard the remarks of Mr. Linkteen. Go ahead.
You were given 30 days for disorderly conduct?
It's a misdemeanor and it's on the record.
It's a answer, though.
Yes, sir. I got 30 days.
You're pretty good at busting up shifter robes and kindling with one hand, aren't you?
Yes, sir. I reckon so.
Strong enough to choke the breath out of a woman.
I never done that, sir.
Oh, but you're strong enough.
I reckon so, sir.
You had your eye on her for a long time, hadn't you, boy?
No, sir. I never looked at her.
Well, that was mighty polite to do all that chopping and hollering then for her, weren't it?
Just tried to help her.
That was mighty generous of you. Tell me, boy, why were you so anxious to do that woman's chores?
Looked like she didn't have nobody to help her none.
With Mr. Yule and 7 children on the place, boy?
Well, I says it looked like they never helped her none.
So you did all this chopping and hollering from sheer goodness, boy?
Just tried to help her.
You are a mighty good fellow, it seems. Doing all this for not one penny?
Yes, sir. I feel right sorry for her. She seemed to try more than the rest of them.
You felt sorry for her. You felt sorry for her? He felt sorry for her. So you went by the house, as usual last November 21st, and she asked you to come in and bust up a ship for robe, is that right?
No, sir.
You denied you went by the house?
No, sir.
She says she asked you to come in and bust up a ship for robe, is that right?
No, sir, it ain't.
Are you saying she's lying, boy?
No, sir, Mr. Gilmore. I say she's mistaken in her mind.
Tell me, boy, why did you run?
I was scared, sir.
You had a clear conscience. Why were you so scared?
Like I said before, I weren't safe any black man being fixed like that.
But you weren't in a fix. You were testifying you were resisting her advances. Were you scared she was gonna hurt you? A big fella like you?
No, scared of being caught. Just like I am right now.
Scared you'd have to face up to what you did.
No, scared I have to face up to what I didn't do.
You being impudent to me, boy?
How'd it go to be?
Scout, go with Dill. Better take him out of here.
What's the matter with him?
My people in hiding. I think you go with them, Miss Jean Louise.
Why me?
I'm okay.
Mom. He got you and us.
Said I was okay.
You want something? Look at these.
Two little statues, cut of soap. Looks like a boy and a girl.
Gun from the novel in the rabbit tree.
The girl could be you, maybe the boy's Jim. We read in garden.
Things in the rabbit tree.
I think I'm beginning to realize why Brew Rally stays locked up all the time. It's because he wants to stay inside.
That don't make any sense.
Oh, yes, it does.
Maybe.
Maybe he found out the way people go out of their way to despise one another. Why did Mr. Gilman have to do Tom Robinson that way? Why did he talk so hateful?
Still, that's his job.
But he didn't have to sneer and call him boy.
That's just Mr. Gilmer's way. They do all defendants that way. Well, most lawyers, I mean.
Mr. Finch doesn't.
Atticus, he's not an example. He's the same in the courtroom as he is at home or on the street. Might even be better if Atticus was a little more...
Don't you realize yet? Your father's not a run-of-a mailman.
Most people...
Well, you care about most people.
You're expecting a lot from a young girl, Dale.
Maybe when you grown older. When you see more of this world. This town.
If you've gotten over your crime fit, I guess we can sit back down.
It wasn't a crime. I just didn't like the way Mr.
That's
Gilman...
because you don't understand about the law.
For an instant, Scout and I were almost together. I expect there's a little of the older woman in every young girl, but they're not in touch very often. We seem to only grow up at special times, such as the time I walked back into that courthouse.
He speaks to the jury. How long's it been out?
Just finished going over the evidence. And Scout, we're gonna win. I don't see how we can't.
If that Mr. Gilman...
Nothing new. Just the usual. Hush now.
With the court's permission.
Never saw him do that before.
Me neither.
Gentlemen, this case is not a difficult one. It requires no minute sifting of complicated facts. It is as simple as black and white. The state has not produced one iota of evidence to prove that the crime Tom Robinson is charged with ever took place. It has relied instead upon the testimony of two witnesses. Witnesses whose testimony has not only been called into serious question on cross-examination, but has been flatly contradicted by the defendant. And I have nothing but pity in my heart for the chief witness for the state. But that pity does not extend to her putting a man's life at stake. And this is what she has done. Done it in an effort to get rid of her guilt. And I say guilt because it was guilt that motivated her. She committed no crime, but she broke a rigid code of our society. A code so severe that whoever breaks it is hounded from our midst as unfit to live with. She is the victim of cruel poverty and ignorance, but she knew full well the enormity of her offense, and she persisted in it. And her subsequent reaction is something every child has done. She tried to put the evidence of her offense away, out of sight. What was this evidence? Not a stolen toy to be hidden. The evidence that must be destroyed is Tom Robinson, a human being. Tom Robinson, a daily reminder of what she did. What did she do? She tempted a Negro. She did something that in our society is unspeakable. She's white, and she tempted a Negro. Not an old uncle, but a young, strong, black man. No code mattered to her before she broke it, but it came crashing down on her afterwards. And her father saw what happened, and what did he do? There is circumstantial evidence to the effect that Mayor Yu was beaten savagely by someone who led almost exclusively with his left hand.
Damn you, Tom!
Sit down! So, Mr. Yule's wrote a warrant, no doubt signing it with his left hand, and Tom Robinson now sits before you, having taken the oath with the only good hand he possesses, his right hand!
You chicken! Lie!
Shut your mouth, sir! You'll be fined for contempt!
Sit down! So a quiet, respectable Negro man who had the unmitigated temerity to feel sorry for a white woman is on trial for his life. He's had to put his word against his two white accusers. I need not remind you of their conduct here in court today, their cynical confidence that you, gentlemen, would go along with the assumption, the evil assumption that all Negroes lie, that all Negroes are basically immoral, an assumption one associates with minds of their caliber. However, you know the truth, and the truth is some Negroes lie. Some Negro men are not to be trusted around our women, black or white, and so are some white men. This is a truth that applies to the entire human race, and to no particular race. In this year of grace, 1935, we hear more and more references to Thomas Jefferson's phrase about all men being created equal. But we know all men are not created equal, in the sense that some men are smarter than others, some men make more money, some ladies make better cakes, and some people are gifted beyond the normal scope. But there's one manner in which all men are created equal. There's one human institution that makes the pauper the equal of a Rockefeller, the stupid man the equal of an Einstein. That institution, ladies and gentlemen, is a court of law. In our courts, all men are created equal. But a court is only as sound as its jury. And a jury is only as sound as the men who make it up. But I'm confident you, gentlemen, will review without passion the evidence you have heard and come to a decision, and restore this defendant to his family. In the name of God, do your duty. My children have been missing. Haven't shown up since
Marcus, they're up here. Yonder.
Jam Scout, meet me outside right now.
Do you think he's mad?
We'll find out.
Hey, Atticus.
Go on, Atticus.
I don't know. You've been here all afternoon. Go home with Calpurnia right now.
Oh, Atticus, please let us hear the verdict.
Have you done your reading for Mrs. DeBose?
Not today. Please,
Do
start.
your reading for Mrs. DeBose and Cal will bring you back. They heard it up till now, they might as well hear the rest.
Suppose the jury comes back before we arrive.
It's a possibility. Might go out and come back in a minute.
You think they'll acquit him that fast?
Do your reading for Mrs. DeBose, eat your supper, and Cal will bring you back. Thank you, Cal.
I should skin ever. What are you alive? The very idea you children sitting there listening to all that. Mr. Jim, don't you know better than to take your listen to that trial? And as for you, Mr. Deal, I hope your aunt doesn't ship you back to Meridian the first thing in the morning. I'd be perfectly ashamed of yourselves.
Calpurnia didn't stop expressing her outrage all the way home. When Jim ran over to read to Mrs. Bowles, Cal worked over Deal and me, and she was still upset as we started back to the trial, wondering what on earth we'd find.
Mr. Jim, I thought you guys were coming head on your shoulders. Ain't you got any sense at all?
Don't you want to hear what happened?
Hush! Son. If Mr. Finch don't wear you out, I sure enough will.
The jury's out! Nobody's moved hardly.
They moved around some when the jury went out.
How long have they been out?
About an hour. Mr. Finch and Mr. Gilmore did some more talking, and Judge Jailer charged the jury.
How was he?
Not complaining one bit. His body felt mounted. Thought he was leaning a little to our side.
The judge is supposed to lean either way. Besides, we don't need it because we won anyway. I don't see how any
Don't
jury...
be so confident, Mr. Jem. I didn't see any jury charge in favor of a black man over a white man.
This case is different. What's all the whispering?
It must be something.
That Bob, you looks mighty pleased about something.
I wonder where's Atticus.
We found out about the whispering. Atticus had been standing outside of the corridor when Bob Yule came up to him, cursed him, and told him he'd kill him if it took him the rest of his life. And when Atticus just stood there looking at him, Bob Yule spat in his face. According to what we heard, Atticus didn't bat an eye, just took out a handkerchief and wiped his face.
How can we let Mr. Yule get away with a thing like that?
I don't know.
But he's a dead shot. shot.
That's not his way.
I'm gonna ask him about this.
But his only comment, all he said was, I wish Bob Buell didn't chew tobacco. Several hours went by and we waited. I don't think anyone expected the jury to be out so terribly long.
Jim, ain't it been a long time?
Sure is, Scout.
My brother got it a favorable indication. Meanwhile, nobody moved about. Nobody left. Then suddenly, it was happening.
This court will come to order.
Helen, you promised.
Scout, look at the jury. Look at him coming in.
What about him?
They're not looking at the defendant.
What does it mean?
The defendant will rise.
Scout, what does it mean?
You're gonna see.
See what?
Hush.
The jury finds the defendant guilty.
We lost. It's all lost. How can they find him guilty?
Not right you to see such things. Not any child see such things.
What happens now? What can we do?
If the evidence don't matter, I don't see there's
This
anything.
blame won't hurt Tom Robinson. Your father will do something.
Take him up, spit in his face, and find Tom Robinson guilty. But no matter what any of them says, Atticus, he's
Miss Jean Louise? Miss Jean Louise, stand up. Stand up, your father's passing.
When we spoke to Atticus later, Jim started to cry. He wanted to know how the jury could do it. I've never seen my father so close to bitter. I don't know how, he told us, but they did it. They did it today, and they do it again. And when they do it, it seems like only children weep. As for Bob Buell, he walked out of the courtroom expecting to find himself a town hero. But it turned out only a few really believed him. Atticus had destroyed his last shred of credibility. All you got for his pain was, well, okay, you convicted the Negro. But now you go back to your dump. You will start making terrible threats. This time, we should have believed him. This time, he was telling the truth. I hurried home ahead of Jim and Dil. I didn't want them to see me going back to the knothole in the tree. I put a note there thanking whoever was for leaving me those nice surprises. I thought there might be an answer, but what I found out was
cement. Someone from the knothole with cement.
Anything the matter?
What? No, sir. Nothing's the matter. There's cement in the knothole.
Build it up.
Why'd you do that, sir?
Tree's dying. Plug it up and expect them to get sick. You know that, Miss Jean Louise.
The tree don't look sick to me.
Whoever carved those statues, it wasn't him. You scared? Scared of all this to you?
Not one bit.
Why should he stand outside the courthouse talking so much? His side won.
haven't won, really. There's something we can do.
You listen to me like the minute Mayor Yule opened their mouth and screamed, Tom Robinson was a dead man.
I'm absolutely surprised at you children. Did Atticus give you permission to go to court? And why were you sitting over in the colored side of the balcony? Wasn't it right close over there?
Hush, Stephanie.
Marty. Marty, do you think it's wise for
We've
children?
made this town this way for them. They might as well learn to cope with it.
Oh, well, at least they don't have to wallow in it.
What happened in court today is as much part of Maycomb as missionary tea.
Oh, well, excuse me. I don't suppose they understood anyway. It's really too bad you had to see your daddy get beat.
When I grow up, I think I'll be a clown. Yes, sir, a clown. There ain't one thing in this world I can do about folks. I'll just join the circus and laugh my head off.
You got it backwards, Dylan. Clowns are sad. These folks that laugh at them.
I'm gonna be a new type of clown. I'm gonna be a clown that stands in the middle of the ring and laugh. Laugh in their faces.
Don't pay any attention to what she says about Atticus.
What do you mean?
Well, I would simply like you to know that there are some men in this world who were born to do our unpleasant jobs for us. And your father's one of them.
Oh, well.
Don't well me, sir. You're just not old enough to appreciate what I said.
I always thought Maycomb folks were the best folks in the world.
We're the safest folks in the world. We're so rarely called on to be Christians, but
When we are, we've got men like Atticus to go for us.
Who feels that way besides you?
The handful of people in this town who say that fair play isn't marked white only.
But who? Who did one thing help Tom Robinson?
His friends, for one thing, and people like us. We exist too. People like Judge Taylor, people like Hecate.
Start using your head, Jim. Did it ever strike you that Judge Taylor naming Atticus to defend Tom was no accident? That Judge Taylor might have had his reasons?
She's right, Jim. Normally, they avoid some new line. One is just starting.
You're beginning to realize a little more to it than you thought. Whether Maycomb knows it or not, we're paying your father the highest tribute we can pay a man. We trust him to do right.
And why to get beat?
Miss Stephanie talks nonsense. Maybe he didn't get an acquittal, but he got something. I was sitting in court today waiting, and as I waited, I thought to myself, Atticus Finch won't win. He can't win, but he's the only man in these parts that can keep a jury out so long on a case like this. And I thought to myself, take note of this time and place. It's 1935, and it's Maycomb, Alabama, and we're making a step. It's just a baby step, but it's a step. I'm going to my kitchen now, and I'm going to make some cake. And I'd be pleased if you all come over later and have some of my cake.
You're so snobby.
Thank you. Mr. Dill?
Yes, I'll come. Thank you. I better go talk to my Aunt Rachel. They trust him to do right. I'll be back, and then we'll have cake.
Tom Robinson was taken to the Enfield Prison Farm about 70 miles away. Atticus thought that Tom had a good chance for a new trial, but Tom just couldn't help anymore. His old employer made a job for Helen so she could support the children, but she had to pass the Yule place, and they shouted and shoved things at her. She was terrified till Hecate went out and made them desist. Then Yule's threats got worse. Partially, he blamed Judge Taylor, but the main focus of his sick fury was Atticus. The only man in Maycomb ever to be fired from the WPA for laziness was Yule, and somehow he twisted that onto Atticus too. Said Atticus got his job. It looked to us that it was building to be a blow-up, but Atticus just went about his business, working on Tom's appeal. Then suddenly, death was among us. First it was Mr. Bowes. Jim started over to read to her when he'd been stopped by Cal, who'd gone over to lend a hand. The doctor had just told her that Mr. Bowes had passed away. And Jim found out why he'd been reading to her. She'd been given morphine for her pain and she'd become an addict. But she wanted to break herself of it before she died. She wanted to leave this world beholden to nobody and nothing. Jim's reading was a distraction. It was a help.
That's why he said it had to read to her.
Her views on a lot of things were quite different from mine. But I was glad she asked you to read to her because I wanted you to see what...
Hello, Finch.
I wanted you to see what real courage is.
Got some good news, Finch.
Courage isn't a man with a knife in his hand, Jim. It's when you know you've been licked before you begin, but you begin anyway. You rarely win, but sometimes you do. Mrs. DeVos won. On 98 pounds of...
Don't you want to hear, Finch?
Mr. Finch, Cal, please!
Thanks, Cal.
For the children? No!
What is it, Helen?
I'll tell you. They shot that black trash.
Tom's dead.
Mr. Finch, they shot Tom!
He was running. It was during their exercise period. They said he broke into this blind charge of the fence and started climbing over right in front of him.
Cal, you take Helen and you go inside. You children go inside.
With 17 bullet holes in it.
I told you for to go inside. Didn't they give him any warning?
They shouted, then they fired a few shots. They didn't shoot until it was almost over the fence.
Mr. Finch, how could they shoot Mom?
He wasn't Tom to them. He was just an escaping prisoner.
Why did you wait for them to?
I don't know. I told him we had a chance, but I couldn't guarantee we had more than a chance. I guess Tom was just fed up with white men's chances.
Well, you just like a color to cut and run.
You come inside, Helen.
You have anything more you'd like to say, Mr. You?
Yes. Lots say there's one down and two to go. Guess who's gonna be next?
Keep a shotgun loaded for the double up.
He doesn't have a shotgun!
Can't believe Bob Buell would ever actually come after me. But if he should, I'll deal with him.
I expect you would.
Did they really shoot him up that much?
There's talk, but I don't know. Atticus, watch yourself.
Don't worry, Hank.
Atticus, I'm worried, and I think it should...
I told you twice to go inside now. And remember, Helen Simmons heard enough about guns.
Atticus was underestimating what anger and sick frustration could do to an already unbalanced man. That night we found out. There was to be a pageant at the school auditorium and Jim said he'd take me. It was to be our longest journey together. Wind was coming up and Jim said it might be raining before we got home. Heavy clouds had blacked out the moon and it was pitch dark. Before we left, Cal had a pinprick of apprehension. When I asked what was the matter, she said somebody just walked over my grave. On the way to school, Jim had a flashlight.
You scared? Scared of paints? Paints, hot seams, incantations, secret signs. I'm too old. Angel bright, light and day. Get off the road. Cut it out!
You're scared because they're passing through Granny's place.
I'm not scared. Besides, he must not be home. How can you tell? Well, if he was home, there wouldn't be a bird singing in the apple tree. Hear that, Mocker? Turn the light back on.
Something wrong with it. Come on, give me your hand. I think we're not too far off the tree now, because we're passing under a cool spot.
The trip back from the pageant was more eventful. The moon had been in and out of the heavy rain clouds, but as we started home, it was black dark, and there was a stillness that sometimes comes before a thunderstorm. Jim thought he heard something, so we stopped to listen. Then we walked a few more steps, and he stopped again. I thought he was trying to scare me, but that wasn't it. He held my hand tight, and he pulled me along fast. Then we stopped suddenly. I thought I heard steps following too.
Are you afraid?
We're not too far off the tree now.
Reckon we have seen
No.
Jim.
Be real quiet, step.
It's just a thunderstorm getting closer.
Not that. Listen! Ah! He's coming! Let's go! Get away! Help! Help! Get away!
Teacher!
Ah!
Jim!
You stay still! Stay still! Look, listen, Julie!
What is it? Who called? Jim, bring me inside. Jim. Scout!
Here, Atticus. I'm all right. The man's gone, but he said something awful to Jim. Atticus, is Jim dead?
No, he's just unconscious.
Oh my God, Scout!
Yeah, she's fine.
Show me and Dr. Reynolds!
Jim's not dead, is he, Cal? Just pass up for the pain, that's all.
Call Sheriff. Tell him someone's been after my children.
After 10 forever, Dr. Reynolds finished with Jim. He said it looked like somebody had tried to gnaw his arm off, and it would be a while before Jim could play football again. He added his assurance that Jim wasn't dead, only under sedation. Meanwhile, Hectate had been investigated, and when he came to the porch, there was something odd about him.
Atticus, come on up, Heck. Did you find anything? I can't possibly conceive of anybody who'd do this.
Let's stay outside.
What is it, Heck?
Bob Yule's lying on the ground yonder with a kitchen knife stuck up under his ribs. He's dead, Mr. Finch.
Dead?
Good
Are you
and-
sure?
Good and dead. He won't hurt these children again.
But
The
that man...
meanest, head, low-down skunk with enough liquor in him to make him brave enough to kill children?
I thought he got it out of him the day he spat at me. And if he hadn't, I thought I'd be the one he'd come after.
Now you know better. He broke Jim's arm and he grabbed you. Then what happened?
Someone came out to help us. Some.
Who was it?
Oh, there he is, Mr. Tate. He can tell you his name. Hey, Boo.
His name's Mr. Arthur. It was just a nickname. Jean Louise, me, Mr. Arthur Radley. Maybe you'd like to take him inside? You can sit next to Jim.
Would you like to come in, Mr. Boo? Come on.
Well, I guess the right thing to do, Jim's a minor, of course, it'd come before the county court.
What would, Mr. Finch?
Of course it was clear-cut self-defense.
Mr. Finch, do you think Jim killed Bob Yule?
They were struggling in the dark. He must have got a hold of Yule's knife.
It wasn't Jim.
That's mighty kind of you. And I know you're doing it from the goodness of your heart, but I won't have Jim go up with a whisper about it. I won't hush.
Hush up! What? Jim didn't do it.
Then who?
I'll tell you. Bob Yule fell on his knife. He killed himself.
Hey, I won't have my children hear me say something different from what they know to be true. If I do, I can't have them anymore. I can't live one way in town and another in my home.
Mr. Finch, I hate to fight you when you're like this. You've been under a strain that no man should have to go through. And maybe that's why you're not putting two and two together. Jim didn't do it.
If it wasn't Jim...
Of course it wasn't. His arm's broken.
Then it was. It would have to be.
Put that thought out of your mind. I already told you what happened.
But if
This
it was...
isn't your decision, Mr. Finch. It's mine. It's my decision and my responsibility, and there's not much you can do about it.
What are you saying, Heck?
I'm saying that a black man is dead for no reason, and the white man responsible is dead. Let the dead bury the dead this time, Mr. Finch.
What about...
I never heard tell. It's against the law for a citizen to do his utmost to prevent a crime from being committed. And that is exactly what Boo Radley has done. Now, you might say it's my duty to not hush this up and tell the town all about it. Know what had happened then? Every lady in Maycomb would be on his doorstep bringing angel food cakes. Now, to my way of thinking, bringing him and his shy ways under the limelight, that's a sin. Now, I may not be much, Mr. Finch, but I'm still sheriff of Maycomb County, and Bob Ewell fell on his knife. Good night, sir.
Scout,
Yes, Atticus?
Bob Ewell fell on his knife. Could you possibly understand that?
Sir?
Jean Louise, you take me home.
Mr. Arthur, thank you for my children, Arthur.
I remember. The moon had come out, the storm had passed over, and I was being escorted by Boo Radley. He went inside and I never saw him again. But when I turned around, standing on Boo's porch, I saw something else. A young boy and girl shouting and running to meet their father coming home. The boy going after Mrs. DeBose's camellias. The children excited about surprises in the knothole. And then a stormy night and those children need him. Atticus. I was already beginning to stand in other people's shoes. The thing he wanted, Atticus. But did you ever know?
Atticus? What Tate said about Boo? About bringing him into the limelight? He was right.
What do you mean?
I mean, it'd be sort of like shooting a mockingbird, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yes, it would. We better go inside and sit next to Jane.
You did know.
All those ideas we had about Boo Radley. Atticus? It was real nice.
Most people are, Scout. And when you finally see them,